Hey everybody, it's Dr. Rick Wallace. Hope everybody's having an unbelievable day. Look, a great day. Before I get started, you know the routine. If you believe in what we do, if you support the work I do, and you understand how necessary that work is, we need you to show some support. We need you to contribute. We need you to donate. We need you to go to the description box. There's two ways. You can click the link and you can go to the site and give, or you can give through the organization's Cash App account, and that information is also in the description box. I'm going to move right into this. This is going to be controversial for a lot of people because we are highly emotional, and it's extremely difficult for us to separate the message from the messenger. And so we miss a lot because the person who said it is someone we don't like or someone we don't support. And unfortunately, we miss a lot. You got to be willing to consume and understand things that come from people you really ain't feeling. And I'm saying that because what I'm about to talk about involves Candace Owens. And everybody know I've given Candace plenty of smoke over the last few years. Justifiably so. But I've also acknowledged when she spoke truth, because the truth is a truth regardless to who speaks it. And sometimes it comes from places that you really don't want to hear it from, but it needs to be heard. The reason I'm talking about that is Candace, of all people, has become the unlikely voice of support for Kyrie Irving. You know, I've been talking about this for the last few days, how all the black men with media platforms, of course that they don't own, couldn't wait to come out and condemn Kyrie. And as I said when I first spoke on this, the thing that people don't realize is when you speak, when you comment, when you leave a recorded version of what you think or what you feel, you tell people something about yourself. Good, bad, indifferent. A lot of times what you tell them is, I'm uneducated on the matter and I'm speaking on it because someone else did. Or I'm speaking on it because the masses are speaking on it. I'm taking a position not because I'm educated or informed on the topic, but because that's what everybody else is doing. That's what the media is demanding that I do. And I'm falling in line. And when people came out and condemned Kyrie, specifically certain terminology that he refused to acknowledge he was anti-Semitic, when he clearly states that he's anti-Semitic. And he does it in a way that you can say, okay, he's getting around it, but no, what he's sitting up doing is he's telling you that he believes he's Semitic. And he keeps referring to the Oxford definition. He keeps referring to I learned to read Oxford. And what he's telling you is, you go to Oxford Dictionary, it defines Semitic along the lines of people who speak certain languages, but also of Afro-Asiatic descent. And what it is suggesting is that more than European Jews are Semites. And anybody who studied history understands that. Now, what Candace initially does, which I thought was, I don't want to say ingenious, but it definitely highlights something I've already spoken on again. But what she does also is she immediately refers to the Streisand effect. The Streisand effect is what happens when you go out of your way to stop something from being exposed or brought to light, especially on social media or the internet. And it has the opposite effect. It turns around and it brings more exposure, more interest, and more focus on what you were trying to suppress. And it's called the Streisand effect because a long time ago, there were some pictures of Barbara Streisand's house that came out. It's interesting that it's Barbara Streisand, but that's another thing. That came out, and she was trying to stop it from circulating. And what happened was more people became interested of it, and it became viral. One of the first viral things on the internet, like I want to say early 2000s. And so what she attempted to do actually worked against us. And this is the same thing that's happened with the attempt to quiet, Kyrie Irving. Is the book is selling like pancakes, and I've heard that they've taken the documentary down, but according to her, and she put this up 19 hours ago, it's the most watched film on Amazon right now. So the opposite effect happened. What happened was, even with Kyrie posting it, the chances are a whole lot of people weren't going to watch it. Definitely not the amount of people that's watching it now. It's literally the most searched for and observed piece of content on the internet right now. And it would not have been that if everybody would have left it alone. But see, here's the issue, and she also brought this up. Like I said, now, here's my disclaimer on that. There are some things she brought up that was completely irrelevant to what we were talking about with Kyrie. And that was to make sure she didn't tick off her base that much. So, some right-wing talking points like the Black Lives Matter. Now, again, I'm not a Black Lives Matter fan anyway. So I'm not tripping on that, but some other stuff that she talked about, and that was for her extreme right people and all that stuff, and to keep them kind of going on. But her points about Kyrie were valid for the most part. Something else she pointed out is that most people, like I said, haven't read it, and it's obvious when you're commenting, because when anybody comments on something and they say he didn't apologize, he did apologize. When people say that he did not acknowledge that he wasn't anti-Semitic, he absolutely did. In fact, he said he was Semitic. Now, obviously, he didn't say it in those words, but he made it very clear that he believed he was Semitic. And that was his reason for sharing it in the first place. Now, the thing is, another point she makes is, he shared this with no context. He just shared a link. He didn't say he supported it. He didn't say everything in it was true. He just simply shared a link. This happens each and every day. And people share links just based off of titles. People share links all the time just based off of titles. People share articles just based off of titles. A lot of times the titles or those articles are clickbait. The article ends up being nothing about what the title is, but they shared it. So here's the other thing. How many people are being held accountable for every piece of content within a whole piece of content that they share? So basically what you're saying to him is, you have to read it all, watch it all, and determine that everything in it is acceptable before you can share it. So ultimately, you can't share anything, because there's not too many things that I agree 100% with. If it's a long piece of content and it's opinionated, there are going to be things I agree with, there are going to be things I don't agree with. But there may be something that's so strongly spoken that I feel like, hey, this needs to be heard. And that is something else she brought up. She brought out so many different points. But the point that I want to get to is, why is it a black female that most blacks don't like, the one that's coming to the aid of a black brother who's simply trying to stand his ground, misled, misunderstood, whatever the situation is? He's not out there trying to hurt anybody, but let me tell you what she pointed out. That's the real issue. Dude didn't get poked and wouldn't stand down, and everybody was telling him he had to, and everybody was calling him aside, and now we're starting to find out that maybe bro was right. Well, and I'm speaking on that from just being conservative and non-biased, but I supported him 100% when he did that. I supported the people who felt they should have. I did my homework and I held my ground. You know, I'm not gonna get off into it because you know how that go on here. But that's what it was. They couldn't break him then. They couldn't make him give in. So he's been in the crosshairs for a while. So people are literally sitting on his posts looking for a reason to jump him. And when he posted that was the thing. Because the thing is sitting on there. Nobody's going after Bezos. And Bezos is just, Amazon is just clicking right now because it's hot. And nobody's still demanding. Now, I think the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, has finally called for it to be taken down. But last I heard, it hadn't been taken down. And the book is definitely still there. And my whole thing is, if we start being able to just say, that shouldn't be available, then we're going to miss a lot of an understanding of history, how people felt, how people move, what drove things, understand the psychology behind things, the force and dynamics, because you're sitting up and you're censoring and quietly. You cannot censor truth. And here's another point that was made in this video that Candace did. I guess it's on her YouTube channel, from what I watched. And I watched the entire thing because I wanted to make sure I understood everything she was trying to say about that. Now, there was some other stuff she was talking about after that didn't have nothing to do with Kyrie. But the whole idea is, this brother shared something. Whether it's wrong or not, black men went after him, guns blazing. You know, he was called an idiot, stupid. You know, basically black men coming on platforms that non-black men create and talking about how scared they are and how we need to get in line and how you have to basically mind. And here's the thing about the interview that Kyrie did, where he stood up and he said, you know, and he even admitted that some of the things in the documentary were unfortunately unfortunately false. And he said he was sorry, you know, about that. But, you know, what they wanted him to do is not just sit up and say that, and not just sit up and allude to the fact that he's not anti-Semitic because he believes he's Semitic. They want him to say he's sorry. They want it to sound like he's broken, like he's been beaten down and put in his place. And because they couldn't get that, they're not satisfied, because the powers that be aren't, you know, they're not satisfied. But my biggest issue is, how are these black cats on there with retracted testicles sitting up? My whole thing is, if you're afraid to speak up, shut up, period. Every last one of them. If you're afraid to speak up and speak the thing that you're really thinking, the stuff you sitting in the background in the shadows talking about with your boys, and then when you get out there, it's something different. It's nothing I hate more than a two-faced, I almost went somewhere, but a two-faced person that's saying one thing, and then when they get in front of other people, I'm the same person in front of white folks. I'm not there to purposely and in an unprovoked way go at them. But when you ask me what I feel, I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel about it. I'm not going to pull a punch. I'm not going to sit up and pretend, well, no, y'all weren't that bad. Slavery wasn't that. Fuck slavery that fucked us up. We still trying to recover from that. And I'm going to show you how and tell you how. And I'm going to challenge you to prove me wrong. And the thing is, I ain't got time. And y'all know that's poor grammar. It's who I am. I ain't got time to sit up and compare my Holocaust, my victimhood, what my people went through, with what your people went through. This is not a competition for who had it worse. If it were a competition for who had it worse, come on. But it ain't even about that. What it's about for me is the truth of my people, empowering my people. Now, if your people are the ones standing in the way of my people being empowered, yeah, you're probably offended by a lot of shit I say. Because it's challenging the status quo. But this isn't even about that with Kyrie. Kyrie wouldn't break when they told him to get in line. And he got a lot of other cats play basketball with big names that were begging him to get in line, that was saying it was out of, that's come out and spoken and said this. That's why I have respect for, who is the cat? Jaylen Brown from Boston, who came to his defense and said he knows for a fact that the cat is not, and I don't want to say he knows for a fact. He says, I don't believe he's anti-Semitic, is what I believe he said. And he came to his defense. And that's what we need to see. It's a bunch of, now, if you're a person that, where you at in your head, you actually believe what he did was anti-Semitic, speak your truth. But if you're sitting up and you believe that it's not, if you believe that he's actually talking about something that we should be actually having a discussion about instead of trying to squash him or crush him about, then don't get up there and act like he did something horrible. He didn't endorse it, he shared it. Sometimes you share stuff for contrast. I'm not going to pretend to know why he did it. What I am going to do is sit up and say that it totally blows my mind that it's Candace Owens that's coming out and speaking clearly in favor of him, unapologetically in favor of him, and admitting that they're on two different sides of the spectrum in many philosophical ideas, but it's a black man under fire. Something close to her words. And it's, in her words, unacceptable. Now, again, this isn't me caping for Candace Owens. Like I said, my disagreements with her philosophy and how she stands on a lot of things is non-negotiable. Her stance on George Floyd, absolutely non-negotiable. We're not even going there. Because my problem with that, and this isn't where I got it, but my problem with that, because I want to clarify something. Candace Owens views George Floyd from a sense of qualified victimhood. Meaning, if you pay attention to blacks, if you see a kid get killed, gunned down in the hood, one of the first things that we do is say they were honor roll student, they did this, they never got in trouble. Why? Because we've been taught that you have to qualify the victimhood. In other words, if for some reason they had been arrested before, if for some reason they had gotten in trouble before, they're being senselessly slaughtered and murdered, whether it's by a cop or another person, is justified or acceptable, or just simply what happens because you used to do, or you were doing this last week, whatever. And the bottom line is, if they weren't doing anything to be killed at that time and somebody killed them without being provoked by violence or threat, then it was wrong and it needs to be spoken on, it needs to be stood on. What George Floyd had did before that day doesn't matter. Even if that $20 bill had been counterfeit, and it wasn't, it still didn't justify what happened afterward. And so for that reason, and some other stuff that she gets on that's totally left, but her stance on how the media is attacking black men and black manhood and black masculinity, I totally agree with her. How she's talking on how the media is trying to castrate Kyrie Irving, I agree with her. And that's the thing, we've got to learn how to say, okay, we ain't on that. We ain't on that. We ain't on that. But that right there, I can go with that. Doesn't mean I want to work with you. Doesn't mean I want to hang out with you. But if I see you telling the truth, I'm going to call the truth. I'm never going to let my emotions dictate how I move, how I operate, and what I call. That's the thing. And it's a bunch of other points that I think were valid, that were made, that makes it worth watching. But at the end of the day, I'm still just blown away that a person who is identified as being completely white wing, that goes to show that it's more than just right wing, left wing, which belong to the same bird, by the way. That bird's been shitting on black people from day one. But it's not just that. There are other dynamics. There are other groups at play. There are other people vying for power, position, and protecting power and position. And they lie in all different realms. And some of them cross over both sides of the bird and have play and power and pull in the right and the left wing. And we need to understand that. And it's pointed out in this. And if you pay attention to it, you can get a lot out of it. One thing she's not is stupid. She's definitely self-serving to a certain extent. She's definitely not somebody that I would consider a true part of the black struggle, not from a perspective that I'm standing at, for a number of different reasons. But what I can say is there are some things she definitely has a bead on And unfortunately, because some of the other stands she's taken, she's never going to be taken seriously by a certain group. But my thing is about truth. And I wouldn't even have to mention her name if black men would have stood up for this brother. And again, this isn't about saying he's right. This is about sitting up saying he has a right to find himself. He has a right to try to discover. Everybody else knows where they're from. Everybody else has a sense of identity and purpose. You ask the average European person here in America, they can tell you their European roots. They can tell you they're from Ireland. They can tell you what part of Ireland they're from. They can tell you they're from the UK. They can tell you they're from Switzerland. They can tell you they're from Germany. They can tell you all these different places they're from, and they can go back generations and say what generation actually migrated to the U.S. and how long the family has been in the U.S. We don't have that. And so when there's some idea or some explanation to where what might be our heritage, we are going to pursue it. And if we don't have an anchor that says we've been in this game long enough, man, I've gone on some wild goose chases. And I'm not saying it's a wild goose chase, but I'm saying I've gone on some wild goose chases because you simply don't know until you know that you don't know. And then you have to learn, okay, don't trust it so easily. Do your homework. Study it. Also be able to articulate it. That's another thing that pisses them off about him. He can express himself. They don't like that shit. But anyway, that's it. I'm gonna get out of here. I got some errands I'm trying to run, get back in and get some work done before I hit the gym. You guys, thank you for letting me spend a little time with you. I'm out.